just meeting like environmental action heroes and like superstars in my eyes who are really capturing things that matter. And knowing that it's the largest film fest of its kind in the world, it's a pretty big deal. Right, to being here. I have Kevin White with me and Stephen Most, and we spoke with Stephen briefly last night about Nature's Orchestra and also The Fire Next Time, right? Are we going to talk about both films today or Fire Next Time? Do you want to do Fire Next Time? Okay, because we have Kevin here, and you were part of that film and creating it. So, man, I mean, this is a huge deal, especially here in California. And as we saw last summer, even just the whole Northwest, which you don't really think about, like going up in flames. But there were a lot of fires last summer, and man, talking about even what happened near Yosemite. And The Fire Next Time, tell us about the film and how you got going on this and why it's so important.
Yeah, I mean, we started the film some time ago, actually a couple years ago, about the rim fire, but realizing pretty quickly that this is a bigger and better story than just the rim fire. The rim fire is emblematic of this kind of megafire phenomena, and I think that we felt like it's time to really look at this in a more substantive way. So we did a short film, The Fire Next Time, 13 minutes, that's screening today, 1:30 at the Vets Hall, I think. And then, but we also felt like there was a real need for an hour film, so we've been working on that and shooting that, and hope to finish shooting and complete it next year. Actually.
Is that going to include footage from The Fire Next Time, or is it also expanded footage like for the big fire that we just had recently?
It's both.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've been filming all over the place. We've been filming at, I filmed at the Butte Fire, we had stuff at the Lake Fire, we got some footage from the Rough Fire. I mean, there's lots and lots of fire.
I know, Kevin, what has that been like just for you guys on a personal level to be that close? Because when you're that close to fire, you're just part of that experience. There isn't really much of a way to escape it because you see the people who are impacted from it. You see the natural perspective, the impacts of that. What has it been like?
Well, one of the things, I mean, I'll tell you, what's chilling is that I was filming on the Butte Fire. We were pretty close, and the fire just came down the hill. And if you know anything about fire, it tends not to go, and it came screaming down the hill, roaring down the hill. Normally fire burns up the hill, and it's like, and it came screaming down the hill. And I was there with this veteran, firefighter, and he just says, "This is fire behavior we are not seeing very often. We have not seen this. This is crazy." It's always alarming when the veteran firefighter tells you, this is fire behavior I don't see very often, right? And it makes you realize that, I mean, the years of drought and climate change and it's a different kind of fire behavior, and that creates, some very high intensity impact. I mean, I think everybody agrees fire is a very important part of all ecosystems. That's not, but this high intensity impact, I think, is something we need to really rethink about, and we need to really start to think about sensible ways to bring fire back into the ecosystem with prescribed burning and all kinds of other activities. So.
Yeah. So Stephen, too, in creating this film, The Fire Next Time, what was your guys' intention overall with the film, and especially preparing us and being aware of how we can, especially here in Nevada City, we're surrounded by the forest.
Well, we want people to know that there is a new kind of fire.
Okay.
It's the megafire, but also just ordinary wildfires have occurred in greater numbers, like 1,000 more in California last year than is the norm. The rim fire consumed in one day 50,000 acres.
Wow.
So people who are concerned, who live in the WUI, the woodland-urban interface, have to be prepared for the kind of fire that no one has experienced before. And that, I think, means public awareness, it means organization, and that we're seeing in the Stanislaus Yosemite area. So that's part of it also.
It is a challenge. I mean, there's so many homes inside of this WUI, and it's hard for the firefighters. They have to protect that homes and safety for homes and people. At the same time, it's a very big and difficult fire to fight sometimes, and they really have to have long, big barriers and really have to be, make sure that there's safety for the firefighters. So it's complicated.
And Kevin, where are you based at?
In San Francisco.
Okay.
But my family has a funky little cabin up on Highway 4 in Dorrington, which is, in the corridor. And, every day you're there, you have tons, we have pines that are dying,
Yeah.
you have
Bark
bark
beetles.
beetles, you have all kinds of stuff. And it's hard not to feel like fire is a different kind of threat right now, at least after 4 years of drought and with climate change, I think we're looking at
Well, and even in doing the film The Fire Next Time, how has this even changed the way that you guys are moving in the world and living your life now?
Well, we are urban residents, but
You're down in Berkeley.
yes, but I feel that we have a mission. We have a mission to let people know about this. It's the immediate threat of a fire for people who live in the mountains, but also urban people like ourselves are not aware of the ecosystem values that forests give us. They give us not only wildlife and recreation, but water storage. California's water comes primarily from the forests.
Well, and I was thinking too, having lived in the city and when I was down there recently, you turn on your tap, there's water, right? You see the ocean, so you don't think about a water shortage. Where here, where we are, and most people who are in the mountain areas, you see the lakes get lower, right? You see the difference in the rivers. It's like it impacts you firsthand. And so it is an interesting thought process. When I had Susanna on just a little bit, and how you change people's thought process and how they even change their ways of living when they don't even see that effect firsthand.
That's right, and we saw the rim fire as a poster child for the new kind of fire because the water and power for the San Francisco and much of the Bay Area comes from the Tuolumne River.
That's right.
San Franciscans are absolutely, chilled when we saw shots of, Hetch Hetchy full of.
That could affect the power for the whole
exactly.
city.
And I think that, we have to recognize that, we are connected. Everyone is connected to this watershed in the Sierra in California, right? And we have to make sure that people understand that connection a little bit. And then I think with that understanding, they tend to be that much more sensitive to what we can do about it. Hopefully a little bit more thoughtful.
So the theme this year is a change, of course. And I asked you this too last night, Stephen, but in thinking about the wildest thing, but I was thinking what's the wildest thing, that might have been when the fire came racing down, but the wildest thing that happened to you while you were shooting this film or sometime around the process and production of the film?
Filming fire is pretty exciting sometimes.
And it's like you're a tornado chaser, except you're a fire chaser, Kevin.
We were really fortunate. We got to go up in a helicopter with Kelly Martin, who's the chief of fire at Yosemite, and we did a lot of wonderful. They had some prescribed burns going on and things like that. Then we went down above Tioga Pass and filmed a prescribed burn, and I was there with a firefighter, and we were relatively close, and this pine just went up like that.
Wow.
Just like that. And he just looked at me, and we were, about 20 feet away, and just boom, like you feel the heat just, and he said, "We better leave now."
That's amazing. And trees have this life force to see that, bam, just like vanish like that.
And this was at dusk. This was at dusk. It was very high elevation, and it was not just one. Wasn't it a red fir?
Yeah.
It was a whole stand.
Yeah,
of
it's a
red
bunch of firs.
One after another, these fires went up within seconds.
That's amazing. That's astounding.
The trees that were like 150 feet, to see them vanish within seconds was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
I was running with the camera, but he was able to see that. It was intense.
That's intense.
Well, and it's because they're very dry too. This was. This is a lot of fuel. And part of this fuel question that we have to talk about is having a policy of the so-called 10 a.m., which is fire starts 10 a.m. tomorrow morning and it's out. And there's a whole strategy for letting some of these fires burn, and up in Yosemite, that's what they were doing.
Sure.
So we're showing something that we thought was pretty important to show, which is let some of these fires burn. But they had to get clearance from the Air Quality Control Board.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, so a
bureaucracy.
federal agency,
wow,
it has to get clearance. And so then you kind of realize it's a complicated question because that smoke has impacts, particularly in the valley.
So that was probably another surprise that you learned too, about just how all that's interconnected and the challenges with that. So real quick too, you have a panel discussion coming up on Sunday, which I know people are going to be really interested in. And tell us a little bit about that, when it's happening, and who are some of the guests you have coming.
Well, it's 11:30. It's at City Hall. And our guests are 3 people in The Fire Next Time. And those of you who can't see it here at the Wild and Scenic can catch it on Vimeo. Just type in The Fire Next Time. But our guests are really prominent people. One of them, John Buckley, is the executive director of Central Sierra Environmental Resource Council. We were just talking about Kelly Martin, who's the chief of fire and aviation at Yosemite.
Wow.
And she's an extraordinary person.
Absolutely.
And then the third person is our science advisor and very interesting person, Malcolm North, who's a fire ecologist at UC Davis and also the Forest Service. And the Forest Service has put a gag order on him because there's a fight within the Forest Service between people like Malcolm North who are saying, we have to do prescribed burns. We have to do things to, prevent, to mitigate against the power of these huge fires. And the larger interests in the Forest Service who have more than half of their budget dedicated to a militaristic fire suppression policy.
Wow.
So this fight actually took the form of our struggle. You want to know a wild experience we had?
Yeah.
We fought Smokey Bear.
It's true.
That's so sad.
We had a lot of back and forth with the Forest
That's
Service
so
about that.
interesting.
Yeah.
I grew up with Smokey the Bear.
Oh,
I like
and an important message to be careful about your campfires in the forest, of
Yeah.
course. But it's also another message, which is put fire out. It's something to be afraid of. It's not integrated in our ecosystems, and maybe that needs to
Something
be
to rethink
rethought.
things.
Yeah. For Smokey, fire is always a danger, whether it's extreme or low.
Don't mess with fires because fires burn.
And we need
remember
to look
growing
at
up with
fire
that. That's-
opportunities.
Right.
We need
Yeah.
to allow
Right.
fires that do not turn into megafires to reduce some of the fuel load, to produce smoke that is not going to cross the entire continent.
Wow. Yeah.
And make forests go up in smoke, because there's the whole issue of carbon storage in forests.
Sure.
If these fires are allowed to burn in the way that they have been without any preventive measures,
Yeah.
our forests could become net emitters of carbon rather than a major storage of carbon.
Wow.
That's one of the principal messages, is to really, I think all resource management is being done right now in the shadow of climate change. And we really have to think about what does it mean to be resilient with respect to these forest fires. When we were seeing, these 500-year-old big fir pines and
just go up.
just
Bam.
go up, and
Bam.
imagine how much carbon those emit.
That's amazing.
So
Yeah.
we need our forests to be sequesters, not emitters,
Yeah.
right? And we all know that, and I think we
true.
have to think about how to do that.
What would you tell everyone about why it's so important to come to a festival like Wild and Scenic? And you can tell them right there.
Because it's really fun, and it's a great opportunity for filmmakers to talk with all kinds of activists and people concerned about environmental issues, and it's just really, really a great place to enjoy films and hang out with like-minded people.
Well, thanks so much, guys, for returning to the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. Kevin White and Stephen Most. Great to have you guys back here, and thanks so much for all the incredible work you're doing. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody want to guess what's happening here? What's happening with the ice on Timber Lake is it's springtime, almost summer. And so the ice is beginning to crack. And when the ice cracks and expands, it creates that kind of sound. When I first began recording wild soundscapes 45 years ago, I had no idea that ants, insect larvae, sea anemones, and viruses created a sound signature. But they do. And so does every wild habitat on the planet.
We've got light rain here, and we've got some clouds, actually some low clouds over in some of the passes, and maybe some snow. But it's very squally over here.
I think this kind of work is very important as an aspect of preservation of habitats. The soundscape is the voice of a living habitat, and to the extent that it connects with the a perspective of the health of that habitat is what's so critical. For if we listen, our ears tell us that the whisper of every leaf and creature
speaks to the very sources of our lives.
Very difficult to express the power of a wildfire. As it came up over the horizon behind me here, it just was a giant wall of red. Now this is Dante's Inferno. There's just nothing that is going to stop this.
I saw this 20,000-foot column of smoke rise up like an atomic bomb. At that point, I knew this thing had gone from a bad fire to a holocaust.
The rimfire was a really good example of where a lot of scientists and forest managers believe wildfire is headed, which is to these really large size events, what's being termed megafires.
This rimfire truly was a devastating, catastrophic event for the effects on just the web of life that's now so disrupted out there. It affected this ecosystem over tens of thousands of acres that burned in the most intense fashion.
No seeds, no trees, no nutrients in the soil are left because the fire was so hot. That's just a tragic loss.
Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and often California are experiencing these catastrophic fires. And really the cause is too much fuel.
Our landscapes are at significant risk. We're seeing large fires in landscapes born and bred of fire now being destroyed by fire.
What's going on in the background of all of this is you have climate change, which is constantly pushing the conditions to be drier, the fuels to be drier, the weather to be more extreme.
We've got to think about fire in a different way. We've all pretty much grown up thinking that we have the ability to suppress all fires, and that's simply not true.
We can create the forest conditions that we know are resilient, that sustain the ecosystem services, the carbon, the water, the hydropower, all the resources and the benefits that we like to get out of forests. Right now we're at a tipping point and we need to consciously make that decision one way or the other.